My wife said better that he finds out after the baby comes. By then it won matter, while hiding her secret with my best man. I didn't shout, just ordered DNA tests and set a trap, because the father would fund his own confession. I will never forget the night I discovered my entire life was built on a lie. At 36, I thought I had everything figured out, but here I am, at 2 a.m., sitting in my car with nowhere else to turn, and hands that will not stop shaking as I type this. Let me tell you about the 8 years I have been married to Jen, 34. We met in college, where she was everything I thought I wanted: brilliant, beautiful, ambitious. But here is the thing about her family. They never quite approved of me. I am just an engineer from a middle-class background, while they move in what you might call elevated social circles. Her mother, Vivienne, has made it crystal clear on numerous occasions that Jen could have done better. Her father, Richard, keeps his disapproval more subtle, and her younger sister, Claire, always watches our interactions with this barely concealed amusement, like she is waiting for a punchline I am not in on. Then there is Alistair Mitchell, my closest friend since college and best man at our wedding. Charming, well-connected, always chasing the next big investment opportunity. He has stayed at our house countless times, eaten at our table, borrowed money when his various ventures fell through. What I didn't realize was how perfectly he fit into the world Jen's family wanted for her. 3 days ago, I was finishing a work trip in Denver when Jen texted something that would haunt me forever. "When you get home, I have the most wonderful surprise for you, darling. I cannot wait to see your face." After 2 years of hoping for a child, my mind immediately raced to that possibility. The thought filled me with a nervous excitement I hadn't felt in years. I even changed my flight, picked up flowers, and grabbed champagne on the way home. I drove straight to Vivienne's house since Jen mentioned she would be there for dinner. The front windows glowed warmly, and I could hear laughter and celebration inside. My heart pounded with anticipation as I walked up those front steps, gifts in hand, thinking I was about to step into the happiest moment of my life. The curtains weren't completely drawn, and through the gap I could see the living room decorated with balloons and streamers. There was a large banner hanging across the mantel that read, "Welcome, baby Lucas's daddy." Lucas, we had talked about that name during our late-night conversations about our future family. I nearly dropped everything right there, tears welling up as I thought about how Jen had planned this whole celebration. Probably told her family our wonderful news. For exactly 30 seconds, I absorbed what I believed was the most beautiful scene of my life. Then Vivienne's voice cut through the warm glow like a blade. "Everyone, please raise your glasses to welcome the father of baby Lucas, Alistair Mitchell. Here is what they don't tell you about betrayal. It doesn't hit you like a punch. It seeps in slowly, like ice water in your veins, until every cell in your body understands that your reality was fiction." Alistair stepped forward with that practiced boardroom smile, accepting congratulations and handshakes. My wife, my pregnant wife, was beaming up at him from the couch, her hand protectively curved around a bump I somehow hadn't noticed yet. Little did I know that this scene had been months in the planning, and I was the only person in their entire social circle who didn't know the truth. I don't remember walking back to my car. I drove home in a haze, sat in our driveway until sunrise, my engineer's mind trying to process data that didn't compute. Jen came back around noon, looking radiant and practically bouncing with excitement. "You are back early. Did you get my message about the surprise?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with what I now realize was carefully rehearsed enthusiasm. I looked at her, really looked, and could see it now. The slight roundness, the glow everyone talks about. "What surprise?" I managed, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. Her face fell slightly, confusion flickering across her features. Well, I wanted it to be special. Darling, I am pregnant. Atticus, we are going to have a baby. The way she said it, with such conviction, such hope dancing in her eyes, it almost broke me. But I knew what I had seen. I knew what I had heard. I have been pretending everything is normal for 3 days now, while my mind races through every conversation, every glance, every moment I might have missed. I keep thinking there has to be an explanation, some massive misunderstanding. But then I remember Alistair's expression, the comfortable way he stood there accepting, Congratulations, like it was his moment. The way Jen looked at him, I haven't confronted anyone yet. Part of me is terrified of the truth, and part of me is already calculating what comes next. I am not the type to make scenes or act rashly, but this betrayal cuts deeper than I thought possible. The woman I have loved for over a decade, the man I have called brother, they have built their happiness on the destruction of mine. I need to know for certain before I make any moves. I have already contacted a private laboratory about genetic testing options. I know people will say I should just ask directly, but I need irrefutable proof. My analytical mind will not let me proceed without absolute certainty. Has anyone been through something similar? How do you even begin to untangle a deception this elaborate? Update 1. The original post got more attention than I expected. Thank you to everyone who reached out with support and advice. I promised an update once I had more information. And unfortunately, my worst fears have been confirmed. The past month has been the most difficult of my life, but I have learned to compartmentalize in ways I never thought possible. I have maintained the facade of the excited expectant father, while quietly gathering the evidence I need. The genetic testing came back 2 weeks ago. The child Jen is carrying is not mine. Seeing those results in black and white was somehow both devastating and oddly liberating. The last shred of hope that this was all some massive misunderstanding died in that moment. But at least now I know exactly where I stand. Here is the thing about discovering you have been living a lie. It changes how you see everything. Every conversation becomes suspect. Every gesture gets analyzed. Every smile might be hiding something. I have been thinking strategically about next steps. My first instinct was to confront them immediately, let the rage take over and burn everything down, but my rational mind prevailed. If I am going to end this marriage, I want to ensure I am protected legally and financially. More importantly, I want the full truth about how deep this deception goes. What I didn't realize was how much more I was about to discover. I made some modifications to our home security system. We already had cameras for monitoring when we travel, but I upgraded them to capture audio as well. Since I own the house, and it is for legitimate security purposes, this is completely legal in our state. I suspected that Jen's frequent conversations with her mother might reveal more details about their arrangement. I was right, and the truth was worse than I imagined. 3 days ago, I reviewed footage from the previous week and found exactly what I was looking for. The conversation was illuminating in the most brutal way possible. Vivienne's voice came through, clearly, matter-of-fact and cold. Alistair will provide for both of you properly, dear. He is the father, after all. It is his responsibility. Jen's response was equally damning. But what about Atticus? He still doesn't know. Mother, he will figure it out eventually. Vivienne replied with breathtaking casualness. Better that he finds out after the baby comes, and you are already established with Alistair. By then, it will not matter what he thinks. The casual way they discussed my future, my emotions, my entire life, like I was some inconvenient detail to be managed. It was breathtaking in its cruelty. I have saved the recording with multiple backups. Their own words will speak for themselves when the time comes. But here is where it gets interesting. I have decided not to act immediately. See, Alistair has always been weak when it comes to money, despite his polished exterior. His investment firm went under 2 years ago, and he has been living on borrowed time and borrowed money ever since. I have a different kind of justice in mind. Through some careful research, I have learned that he has been funding his lifestyle through a series of increasingly desperate financial schemes. He owes money to several creditors, and has been using his considerable charm to delay repayment. What he doesn't know is that I have begun putting together what he will find irresistible, an investment opportunity that seems too good to pass up. Anonymous investors, extraordinary returns, references he can verify through shell companies I have established. I am using my knowledge of his personality and weaknesses against him. The beauty of greed is that it makes people predictable. Alistair will not be able to resist what I am offering. And knowing him the way I do, he will try to bring others into the scheme to maximize his own returns. I suspect he will recruit Jen's family, given their shared desire to maintain their elevated lifestyle. Some might call this elaborate, but I prefer to think of it as thorough. They have stolen months of my life, made me complicit in my own humiliation. Alistair stood in my living room just last month, shaking my hand and accepting my congratulations on his new investment opportunities, all while carrying on with my wife behind my back. The child kicks now. She still reaches for me at night, still tells me she loves me with what seems like genuine emotion. The compartmentalization required to live this double life is absolutely staggering. I find myself observing them like specimens in a laboratory. How do people justify such elaborate deceptions to themselves? How do they sleep at night knowing the damage they are causing to someone who trusted them completely? But I am in no rush. Patience has always been my greatest ally. When the time comes, the truth will not explode in anger and chaos. It will land with precision, sharp, clean, and absolutely irreversible. The stage is nearly set. Their own hunger for easy money has led them exactly where I need them to be. And soon, it will be the very thing that undoes them completely. Update 2, you have all been incredibly supportive, and many have asked for updates on my situation. The past 6 weeks have been a masterclass in patience and strategic thinking. The investment scheme I mentioned is now fully operational and working exactly as planned. I have created what appears to be a legitimate cryptocurrency arbitrage opportunity with verified returns and glowing testimonials. Everything looks authentic because the initial stages actually are. I have been funding small returns to build credibility and trust. Alistair took the bait exactly as I predicted he would. He started with a modest investment 7 weeks ago and received impressive returns right on schedule. Last week, he approached me directly with the opportunity. Can you imagine the audacity? He sat in my kitchen drinking coffee I had made him, while my wife smiled and nodded encouragingly from across the table, and pitched me on this incredible opportunity he would supposedly discovered. Atticus, you have got to see this, he said enthusiastically, pulling up charts on his phone. I have never seen returns like this in my entire career. It is almost too good to be true, but the mathematics check out completely. I played the role perfectly, the skeptical but intrigued engineer, asking technical questions that he answered with increasing confidence. I don't know, Al, I said, frowning at the numbers. Seems pretty risky to me. That is exactly what I thought initially, he replied, leaning forward with that salesman's gleam in his eyes. But look at these numbers. Really look at them. I have already made more in 2 months than my last 3 investments combined. Then Jen chimed in, her voice bright with what I now recognized as carefully calculated excitement. Maybe we should consider it, honey. With the baby coming, we could use the extra financial security. The irony was almost too much to bear. Here was my wife, carrying another man's child, encouraging me to invest in a scheme specifically designed to expose their deception. The interconnected web of lies they have woven is truly impressive in its complexity. But Alistair's greed exceeded even my highest expectations. Not only did he invest heavily himself, pouring in money he didn't actually have, but he convinced Jen to liquidate her personal savings account entirely. Then, in a move that showed just how desperate his financial situation has become, he convinced Vivienne and several members of Jen's extended family to invest their retirement funds. I have been reviewing the footage from the cameras in my house regularly. They had no idea I had installed models capable of capturing audio, so they spoke freely, completely confident that no one else could hear their conversations. They genuinely believe they have discovered a path to permanent financial security and social elevation. Finally, Vivienne said during one particularly revealing recorded conversation with Jen, Genevieve will be able to live the way she truly deserves. Alistair understands her real value in a way that... She paused, then continued with obvious disdain. Well, in a way that others simply cannot. They have invested everything they could get their hands on. Retirement accounts, savings, even second mortgages on property. The total amount is staggering, well into 6 figures across the entire family. All of it based on their absolute certainty that they have outsmarted the market and found easy money. What they don't realize is that every conversation has been recorded, every transaction documented, every moment of their celebration over what they think is their coming windfall preserved for posterity. Jen has been different lately, more confident, and considerably more dismissive of my opinions. She has started making comments about our future that clearly assume she will be the primary decision-maker. When the baby comes, she will say with casual authority, "We will need to think seriously about upgrading to a better neighborhood, somewhere more suitable for raising children of a certain caliber." She is planning a future that doesn't include me, using money she believes will give her complete independence. The audacity is absolutely breathtaking. I have been documenting everything meticulously. Every conversation, every financial transaction, every moment of their celebration over what they believe is their coming windfall. The legal documentation for the divorce is prepared and waiting in my attorney's office. Tomorrow, the investment platform will go offline permanently. All funds will disappear into an untraceable network of accounts I have established. Alistair will try frantically to contact his investment advisors and find nothing but disconnected numbers and deleted websites. The money isn't really gone, of course. It has been redirected into a fund that will eventually be returned to any legitimate investors who were unwitting participants in the scheme. But Alistair and his co-conspirators will not know that immediately. For a while, they will believe they have lost everything. Jen is 8 months pregnant now. She has started talking constantly about baby names, nursery colors, and future plans that clearly don't include me in any meaningful way. She still doesn't know that I know everything. The level of deception required to maintain this charade day after day must be absolutely exhausting for her. But she is committed completely to the performance. I find myself wondering if she ever felt even a moment of guilt. If there were times when she considered telling me the truth. But then I remember the security footage. The casual way she and her mother discuss my future irrelevance, like I am a problem to be solved. And I know that whatever conscience she once had has been thoroughly silenced. The confrontation is coming very soon. I have the DNA results, the recorded conversations, the financial evidence, and soon I will have the proof of their greed-driven downfall. When I present all of this, there will be no room for denial, no possibility of manipulation, no escape into comfortable lies. They chose him over me. Tomorrow, they will learn exactly what that choice actually costs. Civil update: this will be my last post on this matter. 3 weeks ago, everything came to a head exactly as I had planned. Though the emotional reality proved more intense than I had anticipated. The investment platform disappeared overnight as scheduled. By 9 a.m. the next morning, my phone was ringing with increasingly panicked calls from Alistair. By noon, Jen was crying, and Vivienne was screaming about lawyers and criminal investigations. I let them spiral in confusion and desperation for exactly 48 hours before making my move. I arrived at Vivienne's house on a Saturday morning, carrying nothing but a simple manila envelope. The whole family was there: Jen, her parents, her sister Claire, and of course Alistair. They looked like they had been awake for days, haggard and desperate, clutching at their phones and laptops like lifelines. "Atticus, thank goodness you are here," Jen said, rushing to me with tears streaming down her face. "Something terrible has happened. We have been robbed. All of our savings, everything we invested, it is just gone." We added bitterly, "We have lost absolutely everything." I looked around the room at their faces, the panic, the desperation, the way they all looked at me like I was their salvation. Then I placed the envelope on the coffee table with deliberate calm. "Before we discuss your financial situation," I said, my voice steady and measured, "there are some things we need to address first." I opened the envelope and laid out the contents methodically, like evidence in a courtroom. The DNA test results showing that Jen's child was not mine. Printouts of their financial transactions, showing the full extent of their investments in my scheme. Screenshots from the security camera footage, with complete transcripts of their conversations about my future irrelevance. And finally, divorce papers, already signed on my end. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. Jen's face went white, then red, then white again as the implications hit her. Alistair stood up abruptly, then sat back down as if his legs had given out completely. Vivienne looked between the documents and my face with dawning horror and recognition. "The investment platform you are all so upset about losing money to," I said. My voice remaining perfectly calm, was mine. "Every penny you invested is safe, and will be returned to you within 30 days, minus the taxes you will owe on your paper gains. Jen found her voice first, barely a whisper. Atticus, I can explain this. No, I interrupted firmly. You cannot. There is nothing to explain that would change anything. I have recordings of you and your mother planning my future irrelevance. I have genetic proof that the child you are carrying isn't mine. I have documentation of every lie you have told over the past several months. Alistair tried to speak then, his voice cracking. Look, this situation got out of hand, but we can work something out. We can what? I asked, turning to face him directly. Continue the deception. Pretend that you weren't accepting congratulations as the father of this child while shaking my hand at dinner parties. Pretend that you weren't planning to let me raise your son while you enjoyed the profits from my work and my ignorance. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in months. I am filing for divorce immediately. The house is mine, as are all the assets I brought into the marriage. Jen, you will need to find other accommodations by the end of the week. But the baby, she whispered, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. What about our baby? Your baby. I corrected gently but firmly. Yours and Alistair's. I am sure he will be delighted to provide all the support you will need as a single mother. Alistair's expression was priceless. The realization that his elaborate deception had not only failed completely, but would now saddle him with actual financial responsibility, was clearly dawning on him. Now wait just a minute. He began desperately. We should think about this rationally. I have been thinking rationally, I replied. For months, while you were all planning your futures built on my ignorance and trust, I was planning for this exact moment. The beauty of it was watching their faces as months of smug certainty crumbled into the reality of consequences. They had been so confident in my predictability, so absolutely sure that I would simply accept whatever future they designed for me. Vivienne finally exploded with rage. You orchestrated all of this, the investment, the money, the deception. I gave you exactly what you wanted. I said simply, an opportunity to choose greed over integrity. You all made your choices completely freely, with full knowledge of what you were doing. Jen was sobbing now, the full weight of her situation becoming crystal clear. Please, Atticus, we can work this out somehow. Please, as actual father, I said, looking directly at Alistair. I left them there in Vivienne's living room, surrounded by the evidence of their deception and the consequences of their choices. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly. It is amazing how cooperative people become when confronted with irrefutable proof of their lies. Jen moved in with Alistair temporarily, then with her parents, when that arrangement predictably fell apart within 2 weeks. Alistair's creditors, who had been patient while he promised them returns from his investment windfall, became significantly less understanding when that windfall evaporated. As promised, I returned their investment money exactly 30 days later, though the tax implications and legal fees consumed a significant portion. More importantly, their dreams of easy wealth and comfortable deception died that Saturday morning. I have moved to a new house across town, returned to focusing on my career, and rediscovered what genuine peace feels like. Sometimes I drive past the old neighborhood and see Jen pushing a stroller, looking tired and older than her years. Alistair is rarely with her. He has been working multiple jobs to pay off his debts and avoid his increasingly impatient creditors. The child was born 6 weeks ago. I have heard through mutual friends that he is healthy and looks exactly like his father. Jen named him Lucas, just as we had planned in our old life. I don't feel anger anymore, which surprises me. What I feel is something closer to satisfaction. Not because they are struggling, but because the truth finally has space to exist. For months, I lived in a world where reality was negotiable, where my closest relationships were built on elaborate lies. Now I live in a world where actions have consequences and choices matter. They chose each other. They chose deception. They chose to build their happiness on the foundation of my ignorance and trust. I chose truth, patience, and strategic action over emotional chaos. Sometimes the most profound revenge is simply allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their own choices, amplified by their greed and moral weakness. I sleep well now, in my new house, with a clear conscience and the knowledge that I responded to betrayal, not with destruction, but with precision. They defeated themselves. Like the world has been reset to its proper configuration, where truth matters and trust has real value. That is enough justice for me.